Hello and welcome to our podcast here at the Realtors Association of South Central Wisconsin on discriminatory deeds and restrictions. My name is Robert Proctor. I'm the Government Affairs Director at Raskow, and I'm here with Bridget Van Belligen, Senior Planner for Dane County. Hi, Bridget. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself? What does a Senior Planner at Dane County do?
Yeah, so we do a lot of things. Our typical day-to-day responsibilities are customer service requests from landowners trying to understand what they can do with their property, whether it's increase their acreage or add farm buildings or perhaps deal with end-of-life real estate and want to have some answers about what they can do with their property. So that's the main land use focus of the job. And then we also get to do other projects like the one we're talking about today. And this has been in the works for several years, and now we're able to publish the work that's been going on. And so this one is more of a community-based, more than just the rural areas, more than just the towns. It's touching all the municipalities in the county. And it's a little more focused on equity and looking at the past and how we can act in the future and today to right the past.
Awesome. How long have you been with Dane County?
I've been with Dane County now for a little over a year, but I've worked in Dane County and went to school here, so I've been here since 2005. And I worked for the Regional Planning Commission for a long time, so I know a lot of people and places throughout the county.
What do you enjoy most about your position?
It really is helping people out, understanding the land use stuff is quite a puzzle sometimes. So as a planner, obviously I love puzzles and big picture things and maps and all that sort of planning nerd stuff. And then I also get to meet a lot of other people like you and other actors in the community who are working to also help people find their homes and figure out their futures. And that's fun work to be doing.
Great. Let's turn to this project that you've been working on. As we talk about discriminatory deeds and restrictions, what are discriminatory deeds and restrictions?
Yeah, so discriminatory deeds or restrictions are in covenants and plats that were put on properties typically by lenders or developers, dating mostly in this region from the 20s into the mid-50s. And it is a document that was put on, mostly just a sentence in a document that said you cannot sell this property essentially to anybody that wasn't Anglo-Saxon white at the time. So black people, Jewish, Polish, you name it, a lot of it's in there.
So the discriminatory part is it basically was a restriction against people of color or certain religions from living
other ethnic backgrounds than Anglo-Saxon.
Gotcha. And how many of these deeds do we believe exist in Dane County?
So there are 1,229 records that we found out of 330,000 records that were searched, digitized and searched for about 20 keywords. And so in those 1,029 documents, it covers about 4,000 current day properties. Of those, about 1,100 have releases that were done. So those were more common, say, at a developer level. So there's 100 houses or 200 houses under one plat that had that sentence on there. And so a lot of those communities have come forward and done releases similar to what we're going to talk about today in the 70s and earlier.
So to try to just put this into the basic concept, so if I own a house in Dane County and there's a chain or a records regarding my house, correct?
All the way back to when it was approved to be built.
To be built. And in that chain of records, there'll be things like an easement to the power company so they can run electricity over the yard, or to allow the water company to put a pipe through the backyard, correct? Yeah. And these restrictions would be similar. They're filed against the house.
Right.
So when somebody looks at your chain of title, it comes up and says, here's this restriction saying a person of color can't purchase the house.
Exactly. So a lot of them, or several of them were, especially the ones that were done by lenders, were like, this is only good for 20 or 25 years, essentially the life of the loan. Once the loan was paid off, they were less interested or had less concern for who moved in the house afterwards. But that's not true for all of them. And those are actually some of the questions that we want to look at. Now that we know what records have them, we can go back and look at some of those nuances.
And so I looked at the information that the county has in its presentations that it's given, and one of the main cases that came up was a 1948 Supreme Court case, Shelley versus Kramer, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968. And what did this case do?
Yeah, so the case made it illegal to discriminate based on race or ethnic background. And then the Fair Housing Act made it illegal in all housing to discriminate on race, gender. Well, that's been added since, right? And ethnic background. So in 1917, a Supreme Court case made it illegal to do racial restrictive zoning, which was done at the public level. And so that's when the private sector took action and started doing it on the individual property documents. And then when that became illegal, they started to sort of slow down. There was a little bit of, lag there. So we still had some in the 60s, but less so here. Most of them ended around the mid-50s.
Originally, there were municipalities would, by law, discriminate and say people of color can't live in this area. And when that was struck down, then the developers or the people in a neighborhood would come together and pass a restriction to privately prohibit it, prohibit that. I got you. And those are the discriminatory restrictions and deeds we're talking about that still exist against these properties.
Right.
But they're not enforceable because of this Supreme Court case.
Right. They're not publicly enforceable, but mentally there might be a bias. If you read it, you might think, oh, well, this is here, and we have a long history that we're all unlearning and learning from. So it could be perpetuated through private action, even though it was illegal, and even though that is illegal. So the form that the state put out in March enables the private property owner to also make a statement saying that we know this is here, acknowledge it, we don't like this, and we would like to denounce and repudiate that language in our record. Because they can't get rid of the language, the history of the property will remain the same.
And so when I go and buy a new house and it's subject to one of these deeds, most people close at a title company and they'll get a title commitment and it will list these documents, correct? Is that where I would see the deed restriction?
Yeah, I mean, some of them have a lot of paperwork, so you might not see it yourself. The realtors definitely tend to see them more often and would maybe show them, maybe not, especially since they're not enforceable. But that is when people usually become aware of it. So if you weren't made aware of it during your original purchase, people might not even know it exists, and people have been in their homes for now, say, 15, 10, 20 years, 30 years longer. They might not know or have forgotten, and this opportunity didn't exist at the time, and now it does.
Perfect. And so these restrictions are part of your Prejudice in Places project.
Right.
Can you explain how that project came about?
Yeah, so before I was at the county, several other staff and the director, Todd Violante, were learning about similar projects happening throughout the country, in Seattle and Minneapolis. There's a bunch now going around in a variety of states. And so we met with the professors at University of Minnesota, Kirsten Delgard. They shared their process with us. It was a little bit different. They did a much more community-involved process. And we were able, since technology had improved since we had started ours, we were able to take that inspiration and that work and digitize our records and run through a computer program that way. So that was the background of how it got started. And Records and Information Support has been doing it for a few years. So they started in 2017 with the pilot project with the Boys and Girls Club. Intern, Ippolito, if you're out there, we're looking for you. And he went through 1,700 records and found, through those target dates, and found evidence of the documents to prove that it is real here in Dane County. A lot of people think of Dane County as pretty progressive and that could maybe never happen here, but it definitely happened here. And Ippolito found the proof. And then from there, that gave the justification to expand the project and put more actual staff time towards finding the records. And though they finished doing that also about March of last year. So it took quite a while to get through those 330,000 records. A lot of them were in boxes and had to be photocopied, scanned, and put in the computer. It was quite the process.
It sounds like the process. It sounds like it was an interesting project too. Were there any surprising discoveries during your research?
I think we're still coming across that. Right now it's like we just have seen a lot of the numbers and some of the basic language. The most surprising thing is the most basic comment is you can only sell your property to somebody of the Caucasian race, which I find very interesting in general. But by and large, that was the most common one. So 211 occurrences of that. And while there were more references to Black people and people of color by number, their sentences or phrases were all over the place and unique.
When I looked at the map that the county put out showing where these were, so you
Yeah.
could find them on a property, they seem to be clustered.
Right.
Is there a reason why it was clustered? Is it because there was one development where they put them on all the properties, or because there's whole areas there are no restrictions, and then all of a sudden an entire area where there seemed to be all the houses were restricted?
Yeah, so I think a lot of that would have to do with when the development was occurring. So anything that was being built in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and those were, say, the west side of Madison, Monona, Shorewood Hills, and up that lake edge, and some in Middleton, and a few in Sun Prairie. There's a couple golf courses that had those associated with them that may not be near the urban areas, so they're just kind of like out there in what's still kind of the countryside, and you're like, that's pretty interesting. Oh, there's a golf course there. Okay, that makes sense now. But certainly in like Monona, there were more developers coming in, so some of them are on the plat level. West side of Madison too. Also had more plat level with like several hundred homes impacted by one document.
Okay, just to kind of clarify on that, so it sounds like if the home sales were being done in the 20s and 30s, individuals were routinely putting it on a
Yeah, or
deed
the
restriction,
lender.
or the lender was.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really interesting. So the lenders were
Yeah, the
required.
lender were the ones that mostly required.
Were they requiring it because they thought that it would lose
Better value, yeah.
better value?
Yeah. All kinds of biases and
Yeah,
misunderstandings
that's
in
really
there.
interesting. That I've never heard, and that makes sense, but I've never
I did
heard
ask-
that lenders were requiring it.
Yeah, I did ask Aaron, our data specialist, to pull some of the names of the people who were the signatories of the records, like the creators. So in maps, you'd be a surveyor. I'm not sure what the titling agent maybe would be the proper term for that. And pulled some of the names of the companies to make sure that I wasn't going to send people with, pitchforks and ticket signs
So to
over
get to the-
to their
in the
office
past.
buildings, but they don't
Well, yeah.
exist anymore.
Because most institutions were a reflection of the time.
Right.
So it's not to see that, but
Right.
it's interesting. It never occurred to me that lenders, because we know also the realtors have some of that same issue back when you go back to the 20s, and lots of other groups do too, including the elected officials
Right.
who put a lot of the restrictions in place when they were zoning restrictions. So as part of this, you've gone forward with educational events to try to educate people, and it seems that there's two kind of components. One is just to educate the public as to the prior history of racism in the housing,
Yeah.
in housing generally, not just the industry, but housing. And then the second one, to educate people as to the restrictions themselves.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us about that process?
Yeah, so we do have the fortune of having a partner with Dane County Historic Society, and it's very timely. They heard about this work that we were doing, and so they put together an unjust deeds display, and they're taking it around to a bunch of libraries. So we're teaming up with them at strategic locations to help people fill out the form. So that venue provides a really great historic background. And then we're bringing the director with us everywhere we go to as many events as we can to help use that existing channel for education for the public, and we have that on our website, and you can look at the giant 12-foot long banners also on a PDF if you would like. But I encourage everybody to go check it out. They're pretty great.
Yeah, it's a, okay, the word is escaping me right now. It's not a presentation, as it's a display.
Yeah.
With large, with photos
12
and
banners,
12
yeah.
banners showing the photos and showing actual examples. It's pretty neat. I saw it at the City County building. Pretty neat. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So we're teaming up with that, and then we had an event back in June to sort of launch this more publicly and let people know that this form exists. We invited notaries, and the Wisconsin Realtors Association provided a grant to help us cover the recording fees for anybody that came in attendance to that event.
The Wisconsin Realtors Association
Right.
did, correct? Yes. That's one of the things that obviously the Realtors Association has taken we worked really hard to help get the statute passed to give this process and to address a lot of these issues. Being players in the real estate industry all the way back, we played our part in creating some of the issues and playing our part in redressing the issues. And
Yes.
so, so for those people that don't know, the realtors, there's a recording fee of $30 when you record the document to repudiate the deed restriction.
Right.
And that costs $30. And for anybody who wants to do that, the Realtors Association has agreed to pay the $30 so that it's free to any homeowner that uses it.
Right, and you can come to our events that we have coming up and on our website. They're posted up there in the near future, or you can just go to closewithpurpose.org and access the Realtor Association directly, and they have resources to help property owners do it on their own.
And how can people find out if they have a discriminatory deed in place, people in Dane County?
Yes, if you go to the project website, Prejudice in Places, I would just go to Dane County government website and type Prejudice in Places to find it. And we have an interactive map on there. You can put your address in, and it will, if your house has a black outline on it, or say the group of houses that your house is in has a black line around it, then there is a document that we found. And we did also note the ones that have been released, because that's a significant action, and we also want to keep track of all the new ones that people are releasing as well.
Just to add some clarity, because when we talk about it to say release, what is it exactly does it mean to formally renounce this language? Like, what is getting filed, kind of the document itself?
Yeah, there's a 2-page document, and it basically says this document is in my deed somewhere, and we find the document number that it is on, and then that is put in the form, and then it says we repudiate this language, and it is horrible, we don't like it, sign the property owner. And then we have somebody notarized to verify that they are actually the property owner and can legally file the form.
How can the Realtors Association continue to help in this effort?
Well, this helps for sure, just having this podcast. The Realtors Association is continuing to help with the $30 recording fee. I mentioned a few events, so we're going to have people in Sun Prairie at the night market. We'll have people at neighborhood association meetings that we get invited to in those targeted areas. And so we are continued help with advertising those events, recruiting notaries to help us out, and also continuing to cover the $30 fee for anybody that we work with. It could be me.
Perfect. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our members?
I don't know. I think this is a great way to atone for the past. We realtors and lenders and developers have had a big role in this, and so I commend the community for doing this. And I would like to say of the 4,000 to my personal goal to get 1,000 documents filed. There are people that don't want to file the document because when they want to just keep it like buried and not highlight that it's there. There's other people that say, well, it's just part of the historic record and it's not worth my time and energy to file this new document. Those are all valid pathways to choose, but hopefully we can get maybe 1,000 documents filed. What
people are being asked to do here is not to ignore the history.
Right.
They're being asked to, if given the opportunity to file a document saying that in putting it in the chain of title that this restriction is repudiated.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Bridget.
Yes,
Thank you so much
absolutely.
for spending some time with us today. And it's a really interesting project. The Realtors are very proud to be to help with this project, and appreciate all the time the county has put into it and reaching out to the Realtors to collaborate on it. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is Robert Proctor, Government Affairs Director for Raskow. Thank you for joining us today, and keep your eyes open for future podcasts on what's going on in the real estate market. Thank you.